Hello and welcome, Ryan here from Fiskal, and today I'm going to take you through the MRP, or the Material Resource Planning module of Cin7. This video aims to give you a brief understanding of what is in the MRP, what it is, what is needed for it to run, and then later on we'll go into how to run it or how to set it up. So this is more of the what, and then we'll get into the why in some later videos. So what is the MRP? Basically, it's an engine that takes a couple of variables and then tells us, based on the settings that we've given it, it tells us what should happen next. So what it considers is it looks at our demand. So that's sales orders that are in the future that are not yet fulfilled. Those are production jobs that are required but not yet completed. Those are stock transfers that are also started and not yet completed. For the demand side of things, we can also look at forecasts, so we can estimate what we have sold in the past to sort of give us an idea of what is going to happen in the future. And then the MRP uses that data and gives us an output based on the supply. So on the supply side, we also have our stock on hand. So what do we currently have in our warehouses available to us or on hand in our Cin7 Core account across the various locations, or if I'm running it for a specific location, just that location. It also considers the open purchase orders. So what am I expecting to get in, and when is that expecting to come in? So just straight off of these two variables, you can see that there's a lot of input that's required and a lot of step or details that needs to be accurate. For our sales orders that are unfulfilled, we need to see, okay, cool, when is that sale order due? So when do we need to fulfill that sales order? When do we need to fulfill the assembly or the production run? And when do we need to fulfill the stock order? So on the demand side, and then on the supply side, is our inventory or our stock on hand at this present time, is it accurate? If it's inaccurate, we're not going to get a correct reading out of this MRP. And then the open purchase orders, the date of expected receiving, is that accurate? So when we consider all of this, or rather when the MRP considers all of this, it's going to calculate the difference, and then it's going to suggest something for us to do, right? So on one hand, if we have all of the supply, if we have enough stock on hand to fulfill all of the sales orders and production jobs and stock transfers, then it's not going to give us any suggestion, because it's the system says we have enough stock, and there's nothing for us to, there's no point in us purchasing any more product for the calculation period that we have looked at. Whereas on the other end, if we don't have enough stock in the future to fulfill all of the stock orders or production assemblies or transfers, or even our estimated future demand, then it's going to say, okay, hang on, we need to make some orders here. Either it's going to be a purchase order from our suppliers, it's going to be an assembly from that we need to assemble in our on our production floor or in our warehouse, or a production in our warehouse. Or it's going to say, okay, we have inventory at another warehouse, so please try to, it's going to create a stock transfer from that warehouse into the warehouse where the demand is sitting. And so that's just generally how the workflow goes about. When we look at this, as I mentioned, we have to have accurate data and settings, and there's a fair amount of settings that goes into this, or setup that's required to have an accurately run MRP. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is our bill of materials. But before we can get there, we of course need to have our product data in the system. And so if we're just buying and selling products, then of course we don't need the bill of materials. But oftentimes we are seeing a bill of material required. So if even if it's a 2-pack or a 3-pack and it's an auto assembly, there's still a requirement of that bill of materials. So the first thing that we're looking at is our bill of materials, or a BOM. And so what do we need to ensure that that's accurate? We need the product, which is going to be the finished good. Where is that BOM located? It's going to be on that finished good product. And then the components that go into it. So the pieces that make up that finished good. So if it's a 2-pack, obviously I'm going to put 2 units plus some packaging into the bill of materials for a 2-pack, right? So then, of course, we need to have the details, any sort of wastage percentage or actual wastage every time we run this assembly. So we just need to get those BOMs as accurate as possible in order for MRP to run successfully. Secondly, is that on these on the bill of materials for all of the components, or even just that buy and sell example of having one product, we need to specify the supplier settings per product. So we need to say this product is supplied by X, Y, and Z supplier, and then we can tell Cin7 or the MRP, to order from a specific supplier, either the cheapest price or the one with the lowest lead time. So lead time is an important metric as well, or variable that the MRP considers, is what is the time between our order date and the expected delivery date, because this is going to determine the time at which we're going to place the order for this product with our supplier based on the demand that we see coming in the next week or 2 or 3 months even, or even 6 months. And even further, then we have to look at our safety stock. So what is the stock that we need to keep on hand that will mitigate any demand spikes or supplier delays or any sort of production issues that we're experiencing or might experience. So then we also look at our reorder quantity. So when we place an order, what is that order going to be for? So we can set that up as a specific detail. And then we also look at the minimum order quantity. So oftentimes our suppliers will say to us, we can only order 1,000 units at a time. And so every time that we have to place an order, we'll need to place an order for 1,000 units. Whereas if we didn't put a minimum order quantity there and my demand for that period was only 500 units, then the MRP would suggest to create a purchase for 500 units. But then, of course, our supplier, if they have a minimum order quantity, then our supplier is going to say, hang on, we can't fulfill this. We need 1,000 units. And so that's something that we can set up. And then there's location-specific data as well. So all of these combined into a specific location. So if I have a location on for example, in Florida, but I also have a location in New Jersey, and my supplier is located in New Jersey, then there's a potential that my lead time for the Florida warehouse will be longer than the lead time in New Jersey. So those are just some of the product-specific supplier settings. Then we look at the supplier rules. So the supplier rules works on a demand condition action framework. So trigger condition action. So we have demand, which is going to be our sales demand forecast or our authorized sales orders or transfer orders and that sort of thing. We also, then it depends on the conditions that we set for it. So is this for a specific SKU? Is it for a specific category or location or brand, etc.? We'll get into more detail on that a little bit later. And then it suggests the action that we're going to take. So it will create a purchase order, a transfer order, or an assembly or production order, depending on the settings that we have enabled. And depending on those settings, it'll either be a draft or an authorized purchase, transfer, or assembly order. But the overarching mechanic for this is our sales forecast, right? So what are we looking to be selling, right? We can base this off of our sales history. So what have we sold in the last 3 months? Let's average that out either by weighted, by moving, or naive averages and say, okay, cool, we're going to be selling, this on average for the next month or 2 months or 3 months or whatever the period is. But we have some historical sales data to back that up. And then we can manually create a sales demand forecast report using the template that is available in the MRP module, or we can use the sales demand forecast report that is built in Cin7 that takes the data that is currently in Cin7 and creates that sales demand forecast report. Now, of course, for all of this to work, we need to have some accurate data, right? So, and the best case is to have all of this in Cin7. But of course, if we have a new Cin7 account and we're looking to see what do we need in the next couple of months, and we know all of the underlying data, then we can say, okay, cool, we're going to sell 1,000 units in the next 3 months. And you know, this data could also come from Shopify or any sort of sales channel as well. And we can manually create a forecast that the MRP will consider. Cool. So that's basically it on what the MRP is and what it considers. So just to recap, we go through the core product data, which is product data, accurate inventory or accurate stock on hand data. We need to have accurate bill of materials, including wastage and so on, if there is any, and packaging. And then we go into our supply configuration. So the supplier links. So what are who supplies the product, the supplier lead times, minimum order quantities, and supply rules. So then the supply rules works on the output of the MRP. So after it's considered the supply and the demand config data, we need to set up the supply rules, which we'll get into a little bit later as well.